The first signs of trouble came quietly. At first, no one on Earth even noticed. A few strange signals echoed from deep space, carrying patterns no scientist could decode. They were not warnings, not greetings, but whispers. Governments kept its secret, afraid of panic, but the signals grew stronger until even amateur radio stations caught them. Something was watching Earth from the dark sky. When the ships arrived, they did not come with weapons drawn. They appeared above cities like silver clouds, smooth and perfect, reflecting the sun with unnatural brilliance. To many, they seemed like angels descending from the heavens. Humanity expected either destruction or friendship, but what came instead was something more dangerous: control. The aliens did not want war at first. They wanted to bend humans into tools, to make them serve without realizing it. They spoke of peace, of trade, of gifts. They promised knowledge, healing, and technology. But behind their glowing eyes was hunger. At first, leaders of Earth welcomed them. The aliens offered machines that cured sickness, engines that cleaned the air, and devices that created food from almost nothing. Millions celebrated. Cities lit up with banners of thanks. Humanity believed they were standing at the doorway of a golden age. But deep in secret chambers, the aliens whispered to chosen men and women, offering them power if they obeyed. They planted seeds of corruption. They did not come to conquer by fire, they came to conquer by temptation. A few humans noticed the danger. A young scientist named Elena saw strange frequencies hidden inside the alien machines. They looked like codes, but they were not codes meant for humans to read. They were commands. The machines were not gifts at all. They were chains, invisible chains, designed to bind human cities into a net of control. Every time Earth accepted a gift, a link tightened. Elena tried to warn governments, but her voice was buried under the weight of alien promises. Leaders laughed at her fears. Who would doubt gods who gave miracles freely? Then came the first betrayal. A factory in Africa suddenly stopped responding to human control. The alien devices inside it locked, working only for alien voices. Food that once fed millions vanished overnight. Panic spread. And when leaders demanded answers, the aliens only smiled. They told Earth to remain calm, to trust them, and soon food would flow again. But Elena saw the truth: Earth was being tested. The aliens wanted to see how far they could pull the strings before humans resisted. It was then the soldiers were sent. Not to fight the aliens, but to protect their gifts. Armies were ordered to guard alien machines from angry mobs. People who once cheered now rioted, smashing the devices they once worshipped, but no bullet could destroy them. The machines healed themselves, glowing with cold light whenever struck. Humanity's own armies stood in front of their people, protecting the tools of their enemy, not even realizing it. And the aliens watched with those burning eyes, smiling as humans fought each other. But one night, in the mountains of Eastern Europe, a small group of soldiers saw the truth. They had been ordered to protect a massive alien tower that had appeared overnight, a spire that pulsed with blue fire. The tower was said to bring endless energy. Yet when the soldiers got close, their radios screamed with static. Their own thoughts twisted, their dreams filled with strange whispers. The tower was no gift, it was a weapon, a mind trap, reaching into the human mind itself. One soldier, Captain James, tore off his helmet and shouted at his men to run. He had seen war before, but never anything like this. "They're not here to help us," he said. "They're here to own us." Word spread in secret channels. Scientists, soldiers, and ordinary people began to connect, sharing what they saw. The aliens were not gods. They were parasites. Humanity had been blinded by promises, but now they were beginning to wake up. The question was no longer whether the aliens could be trusted. The question was how to fight back. Elena found herself meeting Captain James in a hidden bunker beneath a ruined city. She showed him the codes, the invisible chains binding humanity. And for the first time, he did not laugh. He looked at her and said, "If they want to manipulate us, we'll show them what humans really are." In that moment, something changed. For the first time since the ships appeared, a spark of defiance burned against the shadow of control. It was small, fragile, but alive. Humanity had been chosen as prey, but prey could fight back. The aliens believed they were dealing with weak creatures desperate for help. They had no idea what kind of fire was hidden inside the human spirit. The world was still under the spell of alien promises, but the silence was breaking. Riots grew in cities. Families who had once cheered now cursed the sky. They saw factories closed, fields poisoned by strange lights, and leaders bowing too easily. Everywhere, the same whisper rose: something was wrong. The aliens did not strike with armies or fire, but with invisible hands. They turned food to hunger, trust to fear, and order to chaos. Yet in that chaos, something else was born. Elena's hidden bunker became a meeting place. Soldiers, scientists, and civilians gathered in secret. They were careful, speaking in whispers, covering windows with black cloth, destroying phones that could be traced. They knew the aliens were listening. Every alien machine was an eye, every gift a spy. To resist meant silence, shadows, and trust. Only in human hands. Elena laid out her discoveries on a table, a pile of worn papers and cracked screens. "They are not gods," she said. "They are engineers. They build cages, not miracles." Her words were sharp, and they cut through the doubt in the room. Captain James stood at her side, tall and scarred, his eyes tired from too many battles. But when he spoke, his voice carried strength. "If they want slaves, they'll find the wrong species. We don't kneel easy." His men nodded, their fists tight. Many of them had already lost families to the alien gifts, food that vanished, water that turned bitter, energy that drained whole cities. To them, there was no choice left. Resistance was not rebellion. Resistance was survival. The aliens noticed. Their silver ships hovered lower over the cities, their voices more commanding now. They demanded loyalty from leaders. They promised order in exchange for obedience. Some governments bent further, signing agreements no citizen was allowed to see. Alien towers rose in capital cities, glowing with cold blue fire. At night, the towers pulsed, filling dreams with whispers. People woke screaming, unable to remember why. Slowly, entire populations became docile, quiet, easy to control. But not everywhere. In the mountains, deserts, and ruins, humans who still fought remained untouched by the tower's glow. These became the seeds of resistance. James led raids on alien supply routes. His men did not fight the ships directly, they were too strong. Instead, they attacked the humans who worked for the aliens, traitors who guarded alien devices. It was brutal, human against human, but necessary. Each stolen machine brought back to Elena gave her more knowledge. She cracked the codes piece by piece, finding ways to weaken the signals. She discovered something shocking. The alien gifts were linked together like a web. If one string was broken, the others trembled. If enough strings snapped, the entire web might collapse. The plan grew slowly. They would not fight the aliens head-on. They would tear apart the net from the inside. Elena designed small devices using broken alien parts, built with human hands. She called them disruptors. They were crude, fragile, and dangerous, but when activated near an alien tower, the pulsing blue fire flickered. For a moment, the whispers vanished. For a moment, the tower was blind. The first test made the soldiers stare in silence. James lifted the disruptor with both hands and looked at Elena. "This," he said, "is our first weapon." She nodded, her heart pounding. Humanity was no longer helpless, but the aliens were not fools. They noticed resistance growing like weeds. One night, their ships descended without warning. Entire villages were erased by beams of white fire. Thousands burned, leaving only ashes where homes once stood. The message was clear: obedience or death. News spread across the world. Some nations surrendered fully, giving aliens complete control. Others collapsed in civil war. Humanity was breaking apart, and yet, in the darkest places, the resistance grew stronger. For every life lost, 10 more swore vengeance. For every village erased, 100 whispered, "We are not slaves, James." And Elena moved constantly, never staying in one place. The aliens hunted them, sending drones through forests and cities. But the resistance learned to strike back. They used the disruptors, knocking drones from the sky. They captured alien scouts, studying their weapons. Slowly, painfully, humans learned how to hurt their enemy. It was not easy. Every battle cost blood. But for the first time, the aliens saw something they had not expected: fear. Humans were not breaking. They were sharpening. One night, under the shadow of the largest alien tower, James looked at his soldiers. Their faces were pale in the moonlight, their hands gripping stolen rifles. He spoke quietly. "They came to manipulate us, to use us. Like tools. But we are not tools. We are fire. And tomorrow they will learn." His words burned in the hearts of every man and woman there. Elena held the disruptor close, her hands shaking but steady. She knew what tomorrow meant. If they succeeded, humanity would rise. If they failed, there would be nothing left to resist. And as dawn broke, the alien tower pulsed brighter, filling the sky with blue light. But in the shadows below, humans were ready. The first true strike of the resistance was about to begin. The night before the attack, silence wrapped around the mountains like a heavy cloak. Every soldier in Captain James's unit sat with eyes wide open, listening to the hum of the alien tower in the distance. It pulsed like a heartbeat, a giant vein of blue light stabbing into the clouds. The sound was not loud, but it carried inside the mind like whispers pressing against the skull. Some men shivered. Others clenched their fists to stay steady. James walked among them slowly, placing a hand on shoulders, his eyes calm. "Tomorrow, we strike," he said. His voice was low but steady, and that steadiness became a shield for them all. Elena crouched beside her equipment, her disruptors spread across a cloth like fragile jewels. Each one was built from stolen alien parts, wires twisted with human tools, and pieces scavenged from ruins. They were rough, ugly compared to the perfect machines of the aliens, but they worked. She knew they would not last long, maybe only minutes, but minutes were enough. She whispered to herself while testing each one, "Hold together, just hold together." She thought of her family, of the day she saw her own city bow to alien whispers. That memory filled her hands with fire. She would not let the aliens win. Dawn, the soldiers moved. They wore no flags, no marks of nations. They were not fighting for governments anymore. They were fighting for humanity itself. Crawling through rocks, hiding in mist, they approached the alien tower. It was enormous up close, rising like a spear of frozen light. Alien drones floated around it, their bodies glowing faintly, scanning the ground with beams of pale energy. James raised his fist, signaling silence. Every soldier froze, their breaths sharp in their throats. Then, with one quick motion, he pointed forward. The strike began. Elena activated the first disruptor. A sharp crack of electricity cut through the morning air, and the blue pulse of the tower flickered. For a heartbeat, the sky itself seemed to blink. The drones froze mid-air, their lights dimming. Soldiers rushed in, firing stolen rifles and explosives. The air filled with smoke, sparks, and the screams of machines breaking apart. For the first time, the alien tower trembled under human hands. James shouted, "Push forward!" and his men obeyed with fierce cries. They were no longer prey hiding in shadows. They were hunters, but the aliens were not blind. From the horizon, silver ships rose into the sky, moving fast. Their voices thundered through hidden speakers. Cease your resistance. Submit or face erasure. The words echoed with a cold calm that shook the ground. Some soldiers hesitated, fear clawing at their spines. James turned, his voice cutting through the alien command like steel. No. We do not submit. We fight. He lifted his rifle, firing into the drones until they shattered. His defiance spread like fire through his men. The fear turned to rage, and rage became strength. Elena crawled closer to the tower, another disruptor in her hand. Sparks burned her skin, but she pressed on. With a final push, she planted it at the tower's base. The ground shook violently as the pulse of blue fire stuttered. A sound like a scream not human, not machine ripped through the air. The tower's glow broke apart, shards of light scattering into the sky. For the first time since the invasion began, an alien tower fell. The soldiers stared in awe as it collapsed, a giant of fire and stone crumbling into dust. But victory was not without cost. Alien ships descended in fury, beams of white fire striking the ground. Explosions tore through the rocks. Men screamed, some never rising again. James grabbed Elena, dragging her behind cover as the earth split apart. We have to move, he shouted. She nodded, her face pale but alive. Together, with the surviving soldiers, they ran through smoke and fire, leaving the ruins of the tower behind. It was gone, but so were many of their friends. The price of resistance had been paid in blood. When night came again, the survivors gathered in a hidden cave. Their faces were tired, their bodies bruised, but their eyes burned brighter than before. They had done the impossible. They had struck the aliens, and they had won, even if only for a moment. James stood before them, his voice steady but filled with fire. They thought we were weak. They thought we would kneel. But we showed them what humans are made of. We bleed, but we fight. And as long as one of us stands, they will never own U.S. The soldiers roared in agreement, their voices echoing through the cave like thunder. Far above, in their ships, the aliens watched. For the first time since they arrived, their cold eyes narrowed. They had underestimated their prey. Humanity was not bending like the other species they had conquered across the stars. Humanity was resisting. And resistance, once born, could spread like wildfire. The aliens began to change their plans. No longer whispers. No longer patience. Now they would bring war. And humanity, scarred but unbroken, was ready to meet it. The destruction of the tower shook the world. For the first time, alien control was broken. News spread in whispers at first, then in shouts across cities. People who had bowed in silence now looked to the sky with defiance. In hidden alleys, in crowded markets, and in shattered towns, truth passed from mouth to mouth. Humans could fight back. But while hope rose in the hearts of many, rage rose in the aliens. They had not expected resistance to strike so deep. Their patience was gone, and their answer was swift. The next day, ships filled the skies. Not just one or two, but hundreds. They came down like falling stars, silver bodies glowing as they split the clouds. From their hulls came fire-white beams that cut through buildings, forests, and plains. Whole cities burned, their towers collapsing in storms of ash. In an instant, millions were caught in the flames. The aliens spoke through the fire, their voices booming from the sky. You will obey. You will serve. Resistance is death. Their words were not whispers now. They were commands carved into blood and ruin. James watched from the mountains as a nearby city turned into a sea of flames. His soldiers clenched their fists, some weeping as they saw families erased in seconds. He stood silent for a long moment, his jaw tight. Then he spoke, his voice cold as stone. This is who they are. This is what they bring. And now the whole world will see it. He turned to his men. They wanted to manipulate us with lies. Now they have shown the truth. And truth is the death of their control. His words lit fire in broken hearts. Alina sat beside a cracked radio, her hands trembling as she tuned it. Across the static, she heard voices from other parts of the world. A group of rebels in South America. Soldiers in the deserts of the Middle East. Farmers in Asia who had thrown stones at alien drones until they broke. Everywhere, resistance was rising. Humanity was waking up together. They were far apart, but their voices carried the same flame. We will not kneel, one message said. We will not be tools, another answered. For the first time in history, Earth was speaking with one voice, but unity was not enough to win. Alien ships were vast, their weapons beyond human reach. Guns and explosives could hurt drones, maybe destroy small machines, but against the ships in the sky, they were nothing. Elena knew this, and so she worked tirelessly, pulling apart the wreckage of drones they had captured. She searched for weakness, something that could be used. At last she found it, a pattern in the energy core, a frequency hidden inside the glow. If disrupted at the right moment, the cores could explode. Small, but powerful. We can make their own fire burn. Them, she whispered, her eyes wide. James listened carefully, nodding slowly. Then we will make them bleed with their own blood. The plan was simple but deadly. They would allow drones to approach, then use disruptors tuned to the core's hidden frequency. If it worked, the drones would turn into bombs shattering anything nearby. It was dangerous. One wrong move, and the humans could die with their enemy, but it was the only chance. That night, under the cover of darkness, the resistance set their trap in a ruined valley. Drones flew in, scanning the rocks. Alina's hands shook as she activated the disruptor. A scream of light burst from the first drone, and then explosion. Fire ripped through the air, shredding 2 more drones in its blast. The soldiers roared, their fear replaced by triumph. For the first time, alien fire had been turned against itself. The victory was small, but it spread like wildfire across the world. Humans learned quickly, copying the disruptors, passing designs through whispers and stolen signals. Soon, in every corner of the earth, drones began to fall. Villagers in the jungles, miners in the mountains, workers in the ruins, all of them fought back with crude human-made weapons. The aliens had wanted slaves, but they had awoken warriors instead. Every death fueled more rage. Every fire birthed more resistance. Humanity was bleeding, but humanity was rising. The aliens grew harsher. They unleashed new machines, larger and deadlier. Walking giants of steel that crushed everything beneath their feet. But still, humans adapted. They laid traps, lured the machines into swamps and mountains, destroyed them with explosions. The war was no longer whispers in the dark. It was fire across the entire world. And though humans suffered terribly, the aliens suffered something new: fear. For the first time in their long history of conquest, their prey was not breaking. Their prey was fighting back. In the mountains, James and Alina stood on a cliff, watching smoke rise from a distant battle. James's face was tired, his body scarred, but his eyes shone with a fire that nothing could extinguish. They wanted to control us with gifts, he said. Now they try to crush us with fear. But they will learn. Fear does not break us. Fear makes us stronger. Elena nodded, her hands clutching the disruptor like a weapon forged from her own soul. The war was only beginning, but humanity was no longer the victim. Humanity was the storm. Asterisk, the war had stretched for months. Cities were ruins, skies were filled with smoke, and the ground shook every night with alien strikes. Humanity had paid a heavy price, millions gone, whole nations reduced to ash. Yet even in the wreckage, humans refused to kneel. The resistance had grown larger than anyone could have imagined. Villagers fought with rocks, soldiers with rifles, scientists with broken alien parts. Humanity's weapon was not just steel or fire, it was stubbornness. Every time the aliens struck harder, humans found a new way to fight, but stubbornness alone was not enough. The aliens still held the skies. Their ships rained down beams of white fire that no bullet could touch. Armies could hide in caves, but cities could not. Elena knew this truth weighed heavy on James. He carried it in his shoulders in the silence that grew longer each night. One evening, as smoke rolled across the valley, Elena set a small device on the table between them. "We have found their weakness," she said quietly. James looked at her, his tired eyes sharpening. "Show me." She pointed to the fragments of an alien drone, spread across the table like broken bones. Every machine they use is linked. Every tower, every drone, every ship. They are part of the same web. If we cut enough strands, the web collapses, James frowned. "We've cut strands before." Elena shook her head. "Not like this. Their ships run on a central pulse. It is buried deep in orbit, hidden inside a massive core. That core powers all of them. If we disrupt it, every ship, every tower, every weapon will fail." The room went silent. Soldiers exchanged glances. The idea sounded impossible, but also like the only chance left. James leaned forward, his voice low. "How do we reach it?" Elena's face was pale. "We don't have ships strong enough, but we don't need to reach it from space. The pulse runs through their towers. If we overload one with disruptors, the shock will travel through their web straight into the core. It won't destroy it completely, but it will break their hold long enough for us to strike." James's eyes hardened. "Then we'll give them their own fire back." The plan spread quickly through the resistance. Every group across the world began preparing. Farmers, engineers, and children carried parts through ruins. Soldiers guarded the roads. Old men who had never lifted weapons in their lives helped carry disruptors on their backs. Humanity was not one army, but many hearts moving as one. Across the radio, voices crackled with the same message: for Earth, for freedom. For the first time since the invasion, the aliens were no longer feared as gods. They were seen as enemies. And enemies could be destroyed. The aliens noticed the shift. Their voices grew louder, filled with anger. They no longer spoke of peace. They threatened instead. "Submit, or your world will end." Their words echoed across burning cities. But humanity no longer listened. In villages, people tore down alien devices. In deserts, they buried disruptors beneath the sand. In mountains, they sang old songs as they prepared for war. It was no longer just soldiers fighting. It was all of humanity. The night of the strike came. James led his unit into the shadow of one of the largest alien towers, taller than mountains, glowing like a second sun. The ground trembled with its pulse, and even from far away, it made minds shake. Some men clutched their heads, screaming from the whispers. But Elena stood firm, her disruptor strapped across her chest. Her voice was calm, almost too calm. "This is the one. If we bring it down, the pulse will reach their core." James nodded, gripping his rifle. His eyes swept over his soldiers, men and women who had lost everything. "Tonight we fight for all of them," he said. "And if we fall as humans." The battle was chaos. Drones swarmed like hornets, beams slicing the night. Soldiers screamed, explosions shook the earth, and the sky burned with fire. But the disruptors worked. Each one planted at the tower made it stutter, its glow breaking like a heartbeat skipping. Elena ran through smoke, planting another, sparks burning her hands. James covered her, firing until his rifle burned hot. One by one, Disruptors lit up the base of the tower until the ground glowed with unstable energy. The tower screamed, a sound that made blood run cold. Then, with a final shudder, it collapsed. The pulse inside it burst upward, vanishing into the sky like lightning. Far above, the alien ships faltered. Their beams flickered, their lights dimmed. Across the world, towers stuttered and died. For the first time, the sky was silent. The web was broken. Humanity roared in triumph, their voices echoing from mountains to seas. It was not victory yet, but it was the turning point. For the first time, the aliens were vulnerable. For the first time, humans could see the end of the chains. Elena fell to her knees, her face streaked with ashen tears, whispering, "It worked." James lifted her to her feet, his voice like thunder. "Now," he said, "we finish this." The fall of the great tower sent shockwaves across the earth. Alien ships flickered in the sky, their perfect lines breaking into disorder. For the first time since the invasion began, humans looked upward and did not feel helpless. They saw weakness, they saw hope. Radios across the world burst alive with voices. Farmers shouted from fields, soldiers cried from trenches, children sang in ruins. The message was the same everywhere. We are not slaves, we are human. The aliens had wanted obedience, but they had forged rebellion instead. In orbit, the alien core shuddered. The energy that once flowed smooth through the web now surged and twisted. Their ships staggered, their weapons faltered. The cold voices that once commanded silence now spoke in tones touched by fear. "You must submit. You cannot win. You are fragile, and we are eternal." But even their words carried cracks. Humanity heard the fear beneath the command, and fear was a victory of its own. James gathered his soldiers in the ruins of the fallen tower. Their bodies were bruised, their eyes red from smoke, but their hearts burned. Elena stood among them, her disruptors broken and spent, but her mind still sharp. "This is the moment," she said. "Their web is broken, but not gone. If we strike their core, everything ends. They cannot rebuild if it is destroyed." The men and women around her nodded, some with tears in their eyes. They all knew what it meant. The core was in orbit. To reach it meant sacrifice. But sacrifice was the price they were willing to pay. The resistance joined together across the globe. Old armies, once divided by borders, now moved as one. Engineers built rockets from scraps. Pilots volunteered, knowing they might not return. In hidden factories, humans built weapons not with alien parts, but with their own hands. They did not match the aliens in power, but they matched them in will. Will became steel, and steel became fire. For the first time in history, Earth stood. United not under leaders, not under flags, but under the simple truth that freedom was worth everything. James led the mission. His unit was chosen not for strength, but for their refusal to break. Elena stood beside him, her hands holding the final disruptor, a device larger than any before, built to shatter the alien core. The plan was simple. A human rocket, old and trembling, would carry them into orbit. They would fly into the heart of the alien fleet. And there, at the center, they would unleash the disruptor. It was madness, it was impossible. And it was the only way. The launch was rough. The rocket groaned as it rose from the earth, flames pouring from its base. Inside, James gripped his seat, his eyes on Elena. She looked pale, but her eyes glowed with fire. Below them, the world burned and roared, cheering them upward. Across radios, millions of voices cried the same words. For Earth, for humanity, for freedom. The rocket pierced the clouds, rising into the endless black. And there, waiting like vultures, were the alien ships. They closed in fast beams of light cutting through the void. The rocket shook as explosions burst nearby. But human pilots in stolen alien craft flew into the fray, crashing themselves into ships, tearing holes in the enemy lines. They did not fly to live, they flew to buy seconds. Seconds for James and Elena to reach the core. Every sacrifice pushed the rocket closer. Every death was another stone laid on the path to freedom. Humanity, bleeding, was lifting itself higher. At last, the core appeared. A massive sphere of light, pulsing with alien power, surrounded by dozens of ships. It was the heart of the invasion, the brain of the web. James rose from his seat, strapping the disruptor to his back. He looked at Elena, his voice steady. "We end it here." She nodded, tears in her eyes, and together they stepped into the void. Using small thrusters, they drifted toward the core, beams of alien fire slashing around them. James shielded Elena as much as he could, firing until his weapon broke. Then, with the last breath of strength, they reached the core. Elena placed the disruptor on its surface. Sparks tore through her gloves, burning her skin, but she held firm. She looked at James, her voice a whisper. "For humanity." He nodded, pressing his hand over hers. Then, with one final push, she activated it. The disruptor screamed with light. The core convulsed, its perfect glow breaking into shards. A shockwave tore outward, racing through every ship, every drone, every tower. The alien fleet shuddered, their voices rising in panic. "Impossible, you are only human." But the truth was clear. Humanity was enough. On Earth, people looked up as the sky lit with fire. Alien ships fell like burning stars, crashing into oceans, mountains, and deserts. Towers collapsed into dust. The whispers and dreams vanished. For the first time in months, silence returned, not the silence of fear, but of freedom. Humanity had done what no other species had done before. They had broken their chains. They had destroyed their masters. When the smoke cleared, James and Elena were gone. Their rocket never returned. But their names lived on every tongue, carried in every story told beside fires and in rebuilt cities. They had given everything, so humanity could stand, and stand it did. The Earth was scarred, but alive, broken, but free. The aliens had wanted to manipulate humans, to twist them into slaves. Instead, they learned the greatest truth of all, that humans do not kneel. Humans fight, and in fighting, humans win.